The Milwaukee Bucks shocked everyone at the trade deadline, shipping out Khris Middleton, Delon Wright, MarJon Beauchamp, and AJ Johnson in return for Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, and Kevin Porter Jr. At first, it made no sense, but there's something no one's talking about. A hidden reason why this could make Milwaukee way more dangerous, and if the rest of the NBA doesn't catch on fast, they could be in serious trouble. Let me explain. Before these trades, the Bucks had a serious dilemma. They were at their best offensively when they were pushing the pace, moving the ball quickly, creating open looks, and keeping their defenders scrambling. But that same fast-paced style also exposed a major weakness: their defense. They simply weren't good enough at getting back in transition, which led to easy buckets for opponents. On top of that, the team's age caught up with them. Playing fast drained their energy, making it tough to sustain effort on back-to-back nights. This put the Bucks in a constant tug-of-war. If they played fast, they struggled defensively and ran out of gas. But if they slowed things down to focus more on defense, their offense became stagnant, resembling a 1990s style. Isolation heavy, where players just stood around and watched. The front office knew they had to fix this, so they went after players who could sustain an up-tempo while contributing defensively. That's why moving on from Khris Middleton was a necessary evil. At this stage of his career, he simply couldn't keep up with the faster pace, nor could he consistently get back on defense. Instead, they bring in Kyle Kuzma, someone younger, more athletic, and capable of playing those heavy minutes without wearing him down as much. Many fans, me included, were upset about losing Middleton, but we're looking at him with rose-tinted glasses. He's not the 2021 guy anymore who helped carry the Bucks to a title. The reality is that 2025 Middleton has struggled with injuries, can't log heavy minutes, and isn't the same two-way guy he used to be. Beyond just basketball, this trade also made sense financially. Milwaukee trimmed about $10 million off their payroll, getting themselves out of the second apron and down into that first apron. That's a key detail because it gives them much needed flexibility for future moves. By swapping an aging, injury-prone player for a younger and more durable one and improving their financial situation, Milwaukee made a calculated decision that could pay off in the long run. To really understand why the Bucks moved on from Khris Middleton, though, you have to look at just how much he's declined. This season, Middleton averaged just 23.2 minutes per game, the fewest since his rookie season, while putting up 12.6 points per game, his lowest scoring output since his sophomore year with the Detroit Pistons. For a player making $31 million this season and $34 million next season, that production would simply not be good enough. At that price tag, he's expected to be a cornerstone piece, but instead, he was barely able to play starter minutes. The reality, as much as it hurts, is that Khris Middleton's contract had become a major issue. He's still a talented player, no doubt, but injuries have made him unreliable, and his limited minutes meant the Bucks weren't getting a strong enough return for their investment, plus having to play Dame and Giannis much heavier minutes. Paying over $30 million a year for someone who can't consistently stay on the floor is a massive setback for a team with championship aspirations. That's why the Bucks had to make this difficult decision, as they need someone who can play those heavy minutes, fit their up-tempo style, and provide more value on the court, and that's where Kyle Kuzma comes in. The mindset of the front office was simple. 34 minutes of Kyle Kuzma is better than 24 minutes of Khris Middleton. And while there was some initial skepticism about whether Kuzma could really fit that role, his first 3 games in a Bucks uniform have been very encouraging. In Kyle Kuzma's first game as a Buck against the Atlanta Hawks, he came off the bench and managed to have a real impact on the game in limited minutes, putting up 12 points, 7 rebounds while playing solid defense and even taking a charge. I thought his tough shot making was put on full display, as he made a couple of really tough shots, and he probably should have played more minutes. However, given the fact that it was his first game, Doc didn't trust him with those closing minutes, despite the fact the Bucks would go on to lose by 5 anyway, and probably could have used it. That's the whole point of trading for Kyle Kuzma, to give him those heavy minutes, as he ended up only playing 24 minutes in that game, the same amount Khris had been averaging for the whole season. So in that game versus the 76ers, he ended up playing 36 minutes, and in that time, he gave the team 13 points, 5 rebounds, a steal, and a block. And even though the efficiency wasn't quite there, shooting just 38% from the floor, he managed to do a lot of things in the game that Khris Middleton simply wouldn't be able to do, as he logged what would have been a season-high 36 minutes for Khris Middleton. I thought that Kuz appeared to be a lot more settled in, playing within the flow of the team's offense, as he was able to stay productive despite their heavy minutes. Then in the third game against the Warriors, he delivered his best best game out of the three, putting up 21 points and 6 rebounds on 66% shooting in 34 minutes of court time, again in the starting role, as I thought his ability to push the pace in transition and get to the free throw line was really impactful. In total, he shot 9 of 13 from the stripe, which is an incredibly high number, and I also thought he had some really good defensive moments in this game. Damian Lillard is someone who I cannot finish the video without talking about, because on back-to-back nights he combined for 81 points, really putting the team on his back when it came to offense. However, in the game against Golden State, he managed to rack up 10 of the team's 20 turnovers, which allowed the Warriors to pick up 11 second chance points, and that ended up being the difference, losing 125 to 111. But with their MVP cornerstone in Giannis Antetokounmpo missing all 3 of these games and expected to be out past All-Star break, we have to take everything we've seen so far with a grain of salt. The way the Bucks have been playing will naturally change once Giannis returns, but it will change for the better. With Giannis back in the lineup, the team will have the ability to take some extra burden off of Kuzma's shoulders, allowing him to perfectly slot into a role that maximizes his impact without overloading him. Kuzma's overall versatility is what makes this move so exciting. He can play at the 3, 4, or even a small ball 5, which unlocks a variety of lineup combinations for Milwaukee. One of those intriguing setups would be using him at the power forward with Giannis at the 5. In theory, this would allow Milwaukee to play at a faster pace, stretch the floor, and improve mobility on defense. Against a team like the Boston Celtics, where ball movement and three-point shooting are major weapons, a more switchable mobile front court could really help the Bucks keep up with Boston's perimeter threats while maintaining size and athleticism inside. But the Bucks also have the option of going the complete opposite direction, leaning into their size and physicality with a jumbo lineup. In this scenario, Kuzma plays the 3 alongside Giannis at the 4 and Brook at the 5. This mirrors the approach that Denver uses with Michael Porter Jr. at the small forward, giving them a wing who can score while still having elite rim protection behind him. This potential lineup is also incredibly similar to what Milwaukee used back in 2021 when they won the championship. Drew Holiday was their shortest guy and he's 6'5", while they started PJ Tucker at the 3, Giannis at the 4 and Brook at the 5, with Khris Middleton playing the 2 guard, as Milwaukee completely leaned into their size and strength and just physically dominated opponents on every given night. A lineup like this could especially be useful against teams that rely on interior scoring, as the Bucks would go back to their 2021 defense, having the length to contest shots while still maintaining a strong rebounding presence and the spacing needed around Giannis. The biggest takeaway from all of this is that Kuzma's presence gives Milwaukee options. In past seasons, their lineups often felt rigid. Either they played big but slow, or went small but lost offensive stability. Now they potentially have the ability to mix and match based on matchups, whether that's playing fast with Giannis at the 5 or overpowering teams with size. When Giannis returns, we'll get to see just how much these new combinations elevate the Bucks. But even in a small sample size without Giannis, it's clear Milwaukee now have a level of flexibility that could make them even more dangerous down the stretch and in the playoffs. But comment down below just how far you could see the Bucks making it this postseason. I personally think that Kyle Kuzma is going to surprise a lot of people with the aspects of his game we didn't fully appreciate or see, particularly when it comes to defense and efficiency. When you look back at his time with the Lakers, he actually played a key role in their championship run, and that was because he actually played solid defense, far better than what we saw from him in Washington. But can you really blame him for that defensive drop-off? The Wizards have been struggling for years, rarely playing meaningful basketball, so I would imagine it would be tough to lock in defensively every single night, especially when you're on a team that's not contending and you're carrying a very heavy offensive burden. Now that he's in Milwaukee, he's not going to be the primary offensive initiator, which will allow him to focus more on the defensive side of the ball. His efficiency should also improve for the same reasons. In Washington, Kuzma had to force up tough shots as he was the team's go-to scorer, but in Milwaukee, he'll be playing off 2 of the NBA's best in Giannis and Damian Lillard. That means easier shots, fewer contested looks, and a lot more wide open opportunities than he's ever had in his career. If he takes advantage of those clean looks, his shooting percentages should rise to levels we haven't seen out of him before. But that said, it's worth noting that even when he played alongside LeBron and AD, Kuzma was only a mid-30s three-point shooter, peaking at 36% in both the 2018 and 2021 seasons. However, Kuz himself has acknowledged that he's a lot more mature now than he he was back then. He understands his role and seems fully willing to embrace a 3-and-D complementary piece, something he never fully bought into when he was in Los Angeles. Now he's in that same position, ready to contribute to a contender once again, but this time with a greater understanding of what it takes to win at the highest level. Playing in meaningful games with championship aspirations should bring the best out of him, and if he could step up his play, becoming a reliable defender and an efficient shooter, this could turn out to be one of the best moves the Bucks have made in years. I think the addition of Kuzma really gives the Bucks a lot of flexibility within their lineups, but to be a real title contender, you don't always have to make a drastic move at the trade deadline, and that's exactly what the Denver Nuggets have achieved. And if you want to hear more about that, you can click here to watch that breakdown next.